Hey everybody, welcome to Tony's Time. It is Tony George alongside my good buddy Arun Shiva, and that is better known as Indian Cowboy over at DocSports.com. Week 7 NFL. Picks, previews, insights, maybe some betting strategies, a little bit of jabbing here and there. And Arun, last week we've been talking about the totals in the NFL and how they've been flying over. And odds makers made some adjustments last week because unders went 10-4 against the spread. And of course, underdogs went 9-5 against the spread last week, and that takes underdogs on the year to 47-40-2 against the spread so far in the NFL season. A little bit of a theme last weekend, and I don't know whether, Arun, you were seeing better defense or you were just seeing odds makers catching up kind of with the times.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually think it was more of odds makers kind of catching up with the times because, I mean, that Dallas-Arizona game was kind of expected at 56, but then you had, Kansas City-Buffalo maybe expected at 54.5. Maybe it just could be the number of games too, like Green Bay and Tampa Bay. You just had a lot of high potent offenses that played each other, and these defenses just decided to show up, right? Tampa Bay was coming off that loss against the Bears, so they were motivated to play well. The Chiefs and the Bills are coming off 40 points, giving up to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are coming off giving up 40 points to Vegas, so they were motivated. So you had a lot of these high potent offenses who played bad on defense the previous week, who just decided to show up on defense this week. I think that's part of it. So I think that's, you still had Houston, Tennessee go over the posted total. And my Falcons got their first win, and I told you, coach gets fired, they're going to go show up, And obviously this might be the perfect week to now fade them. But that kumbaya moment was, personally, I told you, I still think Matt Ryan should go to the Cowboys. And now that makes even more sense now after the Red Rockets performance, right? Andy Dalton. If I were the Dallas Cowboys, I would make a trade for either Matt Ryan or Fitzpatrick. Why not at this point? If I were the other team, I'd ship them off to try to get that first-round draft pick too. So,
well, that's the big news out of the NFL this week is that they're going to start the Alabama rookie Tua in place of Fitzmagic. They have 500 ball club. They're playing well, and I've said this all season, and I said this last season. I made a crap load of money on the Dolphins. They will give you a game every time you play them. Even if they missed the cover this year, they were knocking on the door, and they never threw in the towel. And for the last couple of weeks' performances by Miami to decide to bench Fitzpatrick may come back and bite them in the ass. And I know there's a monetary, and maybe you can enlighten me on this if I'm seeing this wrong, but there's a monetary, quote unquote, future consideration here at stake for the management, the owners of the Dolphins, saying, look, this Fitzpatrick is a Band-Aid, over a gash wound right now, a temporary fix till we can go get some stitches and get all healed up. And they're seeing what Herbert's doing in LA with the Chargers. You're seeing the other rookie, Burrow, not doing bad for Cincinnati, although he's on a bad team and they're trying to kill him with all these sacks, but they're seeing how these other rookies are progressing and leading their teams. And I'm thinking we're missing the boat because we have this Tua kid in there. And I think that might be their mindset, Arun. I also think they're throwing caution to the wind. You're fixing something that isn't broken. And we all know that Fitzpatrick can, he can go for 3 touchdowns and 425 yards and a QB rating of 108 one weekend. And the next weekend, he looks like a monkey humping a football going, no touchdown passes, 4 picks, 167 yards, and they get blown out 48-7. But at the end of the day, I'm not so sure that I agree with that move because Miami's playing some good football right now, and they're very well coached.
Yeah, they are. Brian Flores is a stud, right? He was with the Patriots back from 2004. So he's been with the Patriots, for about 15 years. He was with them from 2004 to 2018-ish. So he's won Super Bowl rings, plenty of them. He's got a fistful of Super Bowl rings, so he's a fantastic coach, and that's why the Dolphins hired him. Because to take down the big monster, you have to have someone who's worked with the big monster, and that's Belichick. So to take down Belichick, you get a guy like Brian Flores, who's a player's coach, who's been with him for 15 years. And I think that Tua did this to Jalen Hurts too, right? So
Yeah.
Tua's done this before. So it's only a matter of time before the pretty girl comes along and she looks better. And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
the situation with Tua. And you keep seeing him play well. And I think the Dolphins fan base is going to be super excited. I'm sure they've been clamoring for Tua for a while now. And the reason why they're going to bring Tua now is because they legitimately have a chance at winning this division. Notice that this comes off the heels of the Patriots loss. This comes off the heels of the Bills loss, right? So it comes off the heels of two important teams losing in the division. Kind of now saying this is Tua's team. This is why we drafted him. He's probably learned the playbook really well. Now and Brian Flores will not start him unless he knows that he's going to be proficient in the offense. And I think he feels confident that he can handle the offense well. And what a luxury they have that even if Tua does not do well, they can just go back to Fitz and he'll run the offense just fine. But I think they think that to get over the hump games, like the Patriots the second time around, they need a dynamic, you know, they need not only a dynamic passer like maybe Fitz, but someone who can also run, which Tua gives
Yeah.
them and maybe doesn't give them that. So
Well, a lot of teams, just stick with two teams in the AFC. They're getting it done that way, as Kansas City with Mahomes and Buffalo with Allen. You have quarterbacks that are dual threats that really legit, and Kyler Murray with Arizona is another one. These new age quarterbacks that aren't your standard drop back passer quarterbacks, running out of a pro eye set. Those days are long gone, and you see a lot of implementation and wizardry when it comes to play calling, play imagination, and a little bit more of a spread set, quote unquote, college game to a certain degree in the NFL. It's never going to be, it's never going to be Big 12 football in the NFL, but at the end of the day, I think that probably is some of the pressures involved there. But I'm always a believer in if a quarterback goes out and the replacement comes in with 6 games left in the season, and all of a sudden that team goes from contender to contender and they get in the first round of the playoffs, lo and behold, Joe Blow's healthy. You pull that quarterback that got you there where all your rhythm and chemistry is established, and you stick in the other guy because, quote unquote, he was the starter or whatever the politically correct term may be. I always think that's a little bit of a problem. I think that's a disruption. So we'll see how they respond. Getting to this week's action, Bears taking on Rams. This is a Monday Night Football game. And the reason I bring this up, Arun, I'm curious to get your feedback. There are 2 teams left in the NFL that I really can't put my thumb on. I really just can't figure them out. And those 2 teams are the Bears and the Rams. Now, I said last week that Bears game going into Carolina, Arun there, and I looked it up. I rewatched our video last week, and I said Bears have done it with smoke and mirrors. Well, nobody's 5-1 in the NFL after 6 games doing it with smoke and mirrors. They're a legitimate football team. You can't accept it any other way. And then the Rams, they look like the Rams from 2019 last week when they played the 49ers. And they've had kind of an easy schedule. Here it is. They're now at home. They're laying 6 points to what I feel probably is the better defense, although the Rams can lay claim to that. The total 45. I don't know what to make of this other than I think if it's low scoring, it brings points into play. And I think it might be a low scoring Monday Night Football game. Your thoughts?
yeah, I mean the Bears are the unicorn that just is magical, right? I mean they literally are a terrible team. They have no offense. They're a terrible team, and yet their defense is the strength of this team. This kind of reminds us of the days when all those years of horrible quarterbacking that the Bears had, and somehow they still managed to win ball games because of that great defense. And Nagy is just an unbelievable coach. Can you imagine what Nagy would do on the Dallas Cowboys? You know what I mean? With an actual offense, with actual receivers. I mean, it's a shame that he's getting nothing. If I were the Dallas Cowboys, I would do whatever I can to go get Nagy down the road. Like actually go get a decent coach. It's not even about the players anymore. It's really about the coach, right? If you get
Right.
a stud coach, look at Matt Rule. You know how much I love Matt Rule. What players does he have? He's Christian McCaffrey's not even playing, and they're still winning ball games. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to getting a stud. Getting a stud coach is almost as important, if not more important, than the quarterback. So as far as this game is concerned, it's interesting because the public is going to be on the Bears catching the points, but the Bears can lay an egg too, right? Like that Indianapolis Colts game, they lost 11-19 to the Colts. So I can see us. I mean, how are the Rams that much different than the Colts? They're not great defense, right? And they might even have more firepower than the Colts do. Um, and the Bears, if they win ball games, it's through a low scoring game, right? They beat the Giants 17-13. They beat the Falcons 30-26. Lions 27-23, 11-19 to the Colts, 20-19 to the Bucks, and 23-16 Carolina. But when they face potent offenses, I think they can have a tendency to struggle. And keep in mind that the Rams haven't lost back-to-back games all year. I don't know how impressive the Rams have been. They beat a terrible Philly team. They beat Dallas by 3, and that doesn't look good now. They lost to the Bills by 3, beat the Giants in Washington, then lost to San Fran. But if I had to take a lean here, I usually like the Rams off of a loss. Um, and that win against the Giants, that 17-9 win against the Giants, that wasn't an easy win. That was a tough win, and the Giants really showed up that game. I think the Bears will not have, when they face a competent defense, they have a tendency to struggle. And I think that's what's going to happen here. And I think the Rams are probably going to win by like 8 to 10 points. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be a low scoring game.
There you go, folks. Hey, don't forget, there's a somewhere above me, right there, says free $60 account. You click the link in the description below. You get over to Docs, and you get, if you've never been a member at Docs, first of all, you got to go over to Docs. Best, most honest, sharpest handicappers on the planet, the best content anywhere, daily videos. I see myself, Scott Spreitzer, another huge name in the industry, Rafael Esparza. Let's see, Vernon Croy, he's got a pretty girl that does his for him. You'll enjoy those. Doug Upstone as well. So, and tons of free plays written up, previews of all the games. Get over to Docs, get hooked up, digest some of that content we got there for you. Tell you what, help you make better decisions, boys. Get serious about winning some money. Here's a game here that I think there's a lot of disrespect going one way, and this could be a lopsided affair, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, and that is the 49ers at the Patriots. If you take a look at the Patriots, they got beat last week. Everybody's down on them. And I didn't look at the look-ahead line in this game, but I guarantee it was Patriots by more than 2. And right now it's the Patriots 2 and 43.5 against the 49ers. This is an interesting game. If you take a look at 2 of the Patriots' losses this year, Arun, it could be the Seattle and Kansas City. Those 2 could end up in the Super Bowl together. I mean, literally. Seattle could win the NFC. The way they're playing right now, they could win it. Kansas City, the way they're playing, throw out the Raiders game. Now they're getting Le'Veon Bell. They could win it, the AFC. So those are 2 of their losses. And bear in mind, last week, in 10 days, the New England Patriots had 2 days of organized practice playing an NFL football team. You cannot win games like that. And bear in mind also that Denver never scored a friggin' touchdown in the entire game. So here you go. You got 49ers off of kind of an impressive win. After playing like dog crap the week before, they got Jimmy G back. And he goes back to the promised land. This is where he was nurtured as a young quarterback out of college, was under Belichick and Brady. And, you have that, sub-story, which really shouldn't take too much of the headlines. That's pretty far removed at this point. But at the end of the day here, Patriots laying 2 against the 49ers, 43.5. I got to tell you, I think Patriots by touchdown here, and I think it's a no-sweat winner.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like the Patriots too, and keep in mind that Patriots are 2-3 right now. So if they lose this game, they get to 2-4, and then you have the Dolphins who are off a bye week. who are on a bye week, and then you have the Bills as well. They cannot go 2-4 in this division because they could easily finish third in this division if they don't be careful. So these are the type of games they have to win, and they come off arguably the worst game by the Patriots as a franchise in maybe a decade. Think about that. That was a
Yeah.
12-18 loss. When was the last time you remember a Bill Belichick team getting thumped by what's going to be a team that's only going to win 4 or 5 games this year, maybe? So it's a really bad loss. And you combine that with the fact that, yeah, I mean, the Patriots only lost to the Chiefs by 16. They beat Vegas by 16, which was impressive. They lost to the Seahawks by a yard, and then by 5 points. And they beat the Dolphins by 10 points, which looks really impressive now. I think this is kind of a gut check as well for Cam Newton. I think he's going to have to bounce back as he faces adversity now. This is a team that only passed for 170 yards, not that great, and they rushed for about 117. But what's sad is that they only had one penalty as well for 4 yards. Like they did a lot of things right, but it just was not enough at all. And you have to give the Broncos credit for the game planning that they called. But this is a absolute gut check. This team has to bounce back. And you're right, Drew Lock threw 2 interceptions, didn't even throw a touchdown. So you can't
Yeah.
blame this defense. This
No.
defense was phenomenal. But Cam threw 2 interceptions too, right? Cam threw 2 interceptions. And if you take away Cam's 76 yards of rushing, this team had 20 yards from Damian Harris. This team had 14 yards from Burkhead and 8 from James. They could not run the ball on the Broncos. So the question
Yeah.
is, can they run the ball on the Niners? And I think they can because the Rams ran for about 100 yards on them. And I
Right.
still am not. And who knows Jimmy Garoppolo better than anybody? Bill Belichick, right? So he
Yeah.
knows what he struggles against. Remember, the reason why the Bears lost to the Colts is because who knows Nick Foles better than anybody? Frank Reich,
Right.
the guy who coached him in Philadelphia and led him to a Super Bowl. He knows him inside and out. So who knows Jimmy G better than anybody? Bill Belichick. So they're going to dial up stuff that irritates Jimmy G. This is an absolute must win. And the Niners have a lot of holes in that team right now. And I
Right.
think the Patriots are going to. I agree with you. And it's a good public fade. Most of the public is taking the Niners anyway.
Yeah. Especially out here on the West Coast, here in Las Vegas. Here's one of the biggest line swings I've seen all week. Curious to get your thoughts on it. The Steelers opened up at 2.5, and now it's Titans minus 145. This is probably, in my mind, the marquee game of the weekend. You got a couple of big boys knocking heads here. Tennessee has looked good. Tennessee was the recipient of a gift from Romeo Crennel this past weekend. Many would say, others would say it was a good coaching decision. Whatever, they beat a bad Texas team in overtime. An impressive win over the Buffalo Bills. And Kansas City took a playbook right out of how they beat them, and Kansas City beat the Bills the same way. But at the end of the day here, I'm not sold on the Steelers, and I'm not sold on Tennessee as being two elite teams. But of the two teams, if you say which one's elite, I would still have to side with Pittsburgh here. I think overall, offensively, I like the quarterback better. They have a running game. They have more talent at wide receiver. I know Brown's good for Tennessee, but at the end of the day here, this is a very intriguing matchup with a 3-point line swing. And I cannot believe that an overtime win against the Texans is driving that line move, Arun. What's your thoughts?
So, and we can do a 6 pack on this. I actually like Tennessee in this game just because I feel like Tennessee, they play big boy football, meaning that when it's really important, like going on the road to beating the Patriots with Brady, right? Or the fact that they're able to thump the Bills. You know what I mean? Like when it really counts, if Vrabel gets these guys up. And, it's a shame that Pittsburgh thumped Cleveland so bad because I was actually on Cleveland in that game because I thought Cleveland had turned the corner. But they won 38-7. But keep in mind that, Ben Roethlisberger in that game only threw for 150 yards. That's it. This team scored that many points by Roethlisberger throwing, 100 and basically around 160 yards or whatnot, and they were able to rush the ball for about 100 yards. But and I don't blame the Titans so much for the Texans' loss, just because remember we've always talked about a new coach comes in and kumbaya and a team rallies and everything, and the Texans really they really were feeling themselves, if you will. They were coming off their first one against the Jaguars, another divisional game. They beat the Titans here. I think they got the absolute best shot they can from the Texans, because I think the Texans really thought maybe they had a shot of salvaging the season. Um, it also depends on how injury prone some of these wide receivers are for the Steelers, right? Between Juju, will Claypool show up in the big game? And the other thing, man, is Derrick Henry is a monster, just an absolute monster. The Steelers are used to thumping people in the mouth. Like, they're more physical than the Browns, but I don't know if
Right.
they're more physical than the Titans. I think the guy who's the biggest thumper is Derrick Henry out of all of these people that are going to be on the field. And I think the Titans can control the line of scrimmage. I think, you know, when push comes to shove, like the Titans have a tendency of getting bored. Like when they played the Jaguars, they got bored and almost lost that game. Or the Broncos, they got bored and almost lost that game. Vikings won that game by 1 point. But then when they faced the Bills, they were there. Kind of got bored against the Texans. I don't think they get bored here. I think they show up against the Steelers.
Yeah, they were up 14-0 on Texas right out of the gate. And then they just seemed to get complacent. And Vrabel's got to do, and I think Vrabel's a good coach, but he's got to do a better job of keeping his team intense for full 4 quarters. And I find it hard to believe that he coaches that way, or it seems that he coaches that way in terms of letting his team get complacent because he's a Belichick disciple. I mean, he played for him. They never let their foot off your throat. Belichick is the Steve Spurrier of the NFL. Hey, you're supposed to show up and play me, and if you don't, I'm just going to beat your ass till you say uncle, and then I'm going to start to go to work on you. That's kind of how Belichick plays the ball game. I'm surprised Vrabel doesn't do that. If he does, I think they got a good chance of winning this. I like them better at +2.5 than I do at -1. And if I can get this to 2, I'll probably use Pittsburgh in a teaser. I think it's going to be that close of a game. And with a total sitting at 45, odds makers are expecting the same thing I am, a low-scoring game. You are going to see a lot of Henry. You want to keep Juju Schuster. You want to keep Claypool. They got a great tight end there at Pittsburgh, too. And Roethlisberger is still Ben Roethlisberger. You want to keep those weapons off the field as much as humanly possible. It's like what the Raiders did to Kansas City a couple weeks ago. We're just going to run that running back for 188 yards and keep you guys off the field and eat clock. That's how you beat Pittsburgh, because they can strike anywhere, anytime. With those wide receivers they have, and they will test the secondary of Tennessee. I think this is going to be one of the better ball games of the weekend. We got 2 more I want to talk about. I want you to know, by the way, we're even on the steak and the beer now. So we're going to have to go back. I'm going to see what you like in this game here, but we're going to talk about your Dirty Birds. Last week I had an opinion on the show with Minnesota. And you were telling me about this kumbaya moment and all this. I'm like, whatever, But at the end of the day, you were right and I was wrong. And I also had that as a top play over the weekend, which has me licking my wounds. But nonetheless, the Lions at the Falcons. Falcons off the big win. I don't know whether Zimmer did not have his team ready to play. Because out of division, he was like an unbelievable against the spread number. I mean, it was he's got an unbelievable number against the spread out of division play. But he did not have his team ready to play, and Atlanta played like a team that you and I have not been familiar with all season long in that last game. And the Lions coming off, another Jacksonville no-show as Jacksonville continues to spiral downward after a surprising start and, a couple of good games, and now they're doing what they do. And, obviously Detroit took advantage of it. But at the end of the day here, this ought to be a pretty good game. The total's 55.5. I think that's for a good reason. I don't think either one's going to be able to stop the other one. And you got Falcons at home laying 2.5 here against the Lions.
Yeah, I like the Lions here. So I'm ready to go against my Falcons now. It was a kumbaya moment, and that's wonderful. Yeah. But don't forget that these Lions are good. and they've been
Yeah.
good. You talked about them. We talked about them how they're probably going to do well against Jacksonville. The public's probably going to win this one, and these lines are good. Yeah, I mean, look, Matt Ryan threw for 370 and 4 touchdowns. Congratulations to my Falcons. I'm really happy for us or whatever. But at the same time, Kirk Cousins threw 3 interceptions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he also threw for 340 yards, and you have a Minnesota team that only rushed for 32 yards, and the Lions are going to do a lot better than that. So, and Patricia's also coaching for his job. He
Yeah.
has not gotten fired yet, right?
Mhm.
So that's important too. And he does not want to lose to these Falcons, or else the Falcons are going to go just killing coaches, right? Because they're just going to start beating teams, and then all of a sudden everybody they beat is going to get fired because people think they're so bad. I think that was a nice kumbaya moment, if you will. And at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins is a you never know what Kirk Cousins you're going to get. But what you are getting with the Lions is a team that nearly beat New Orleans, that should have beat New Orleans, lost by 6. It's a team that beat Arizona on the road by 3, and you saw what Dallas happened when they faced Arizona. It's a team that was up on Green Bay at one point, and then they lost. It's a team that should have beaten Chicago, right? When they had 3 cornerbacks that went out. So this is a team that actually, frankly, should have beaten Chicago. So they actually should be more of 3-2 rather than 2-3. And that New Orleans game, New Orleans had to come back big time in that game to win. So you could argue that they could even be 4-1. These lines are getting good, man, and the Falcons are weak. I mean, I'm glad we had a great game, but we have so much safety issues, and I think they just kind of blew their wad, if you will, last week against Minnesota at the right spot. And I think the Lions are probably the team. I mean, getting points with the better team. Think about it. I think the Lions are better here.
Well, I'll tell you this much. The Lions are top my list for a 2-team 6-point teaser play. They're going to be half of it, big time. And this line, sharps are going to hit this. This line's going to go down. So those of you that are Lions fans, you're going to want to grab this now. We're taping this on Wednesday afternoon. You want to put them in a teaser. Might not even be a bad money line play for a small wager. That's for sure. So that's one angle I would use there with this game here. And I do think that secondary and that defense of Atlanta is not facing Kirk Cousins. They're facing Matt Stafford. And again, I will say this and you've said you've liked Detroit all year long. They were that close. You know, that they're the kings of blowing double-digit leads and losing straight up in the NFL. And the Chargers are the team that, you know, is following them, that has leads and blows them all the time and sometimes even misses the covers. But at the end of the day, Matt Stafford is a great quarterback. He is a top 5 quarterback.
And Tony, guess where Matt Stafford went to college? Georgia. So he's going to have some people around town looking for him as well. So he's going to have some family, some friends. This is a game that he'll want to win.
Homecoming for Matt Stafford. Put him in your teaser. What's that Stu Feiner used to say? The old tout. Super lock of the millennium.
yeah, I'm not going to say that, but you know, whenever you and I point stuff out, that they have a tendency to be on the right side for sure.
Yeah, that's old school. Anyway, just having some fun with you there. And let's see, what I have. Oh, I had my ticket. I got this ticket here from Circa. We were talking about that's $1,000 ticket on the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC East. So when you were talking about the Patriots losing, they could actually finish 3rd. I'm hoping you're right, just so I can cash that ticket. But you know, and before we get to this last game, just real quick, random thought. Your thoughts on the Bills? You know, they were everybody's cup of tea. They were the prettiest girl at the dance here until 2 weeks ago, and obviously they've lost to 2 good teams. You know, Tennessee and Kansas City. Both those teams were playoff teams last year, as Buffalo was. But do you think the sell sign is on for Buffalo, or do you think after some time off here, the buy sign is going to be back on with them?
Yeah, I think the Bills are a team that's kind of finding themselves. You know, I think they are a good team. Remember how the Atlanta Hawks used to win like 50 games every year, but then lose in the playoffs?
Yeah,
It was that team with Mookie Blaylock and Steve Smith and Dikembe
you're right.
Mutombo and Stacey
Yep.
Augmon and yeah,
Yeah.
it was that playoff team where they were a good team but not a great team, and that's what the Bills kind of remind me of. They kind of remind me of the Minnesota Vikings when they were good with Kirk Cousins, a good team but not an elite team, and that's what kind of the Bills remind me of. And I think maybe another year or two with their system, with McDermott's system, they'll get over the hump, you know. But I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're a great team. Like I think like the Tennessee Titans are dogs. Like they're just a bunch of guys that are kind of bored, but when that moment comes, they got the talent level to step up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Bills have the talent level. Come on, TJ Yeldon, like come on, like do they really have the talent level to get over the precipice? No. The Titans do. The
Yeah.
Titans got some dogs. I mean, Derrick Henry and Tannehill's playing out of his mind. I don't think the Bills have that. I mean, Colt. I love Beasley, but I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like, do you have what it really takes to get over the hump? I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where the Bills are. Not there, but better than good
They missed a
or
running
average.
back. They missed a running back that left their division, and that's Le'Veon Bell. He would have been a good fit there for their system, and they let him get away out of that division. What Kansas City's doing with him, actually, I'm still trying to figure that out. But they don't turn, as Andy Reid said, we don't turn down good players. But at the end of the day, I thought that maybe Buffalo might have caught wind in that, being kind of in that division and knowing all those teams and knowing the politics, that maybe they could have snuck in there and got it. That would have been a huge hit for them and made them a serious contender. I mean, really,
Well,
I think so.
that's a great point. And Andy Reid doesn't want to face Le'Veon Bell either. He's much better
No,
on your team than on everyone else's team.
yeah. Well, we found that out when Pittsburgh was kicking our ass. So trust me, when he was playing running back there. Quick game real quick. Once again, he's Indian Cowboy. I'm Tony George. It's a free $60. Click that link in the description below. There's pretenders, there's contenders, and then there's a real deal. Doc Sports is the real deal, folks. Get over there, utilize 95% on that web. 95% of the stuff on that website's free, and we got some great handicappers for you and a ton of free info and content that will help you make better decisions in all sports across the board. So be sure and jump on board there. Very quickly, we'll make this short and sweet. Seahawks taking on the Cardinals. This might be the other marquee game of the day besides Pittsburgh and Tennessee. Folks, calm down on Arizona. Dallas is a crappy football team. McCarthy can't coach. I thought he might be an improvement from Garrett. I think I was wrong. That being said, we're not talking about the Cowboys right now. They were gifted, Arizona was, a game against Dallas with turnovers. Now they're going to go play a team that's well rested, that's knocked off some of the most elite teams in all of football with Russell Wilson, a quarterback. And if you want to compare quarterbacks in this game, Russell Wilson versus Murray, I got some news for you. Russell Wilson's having an MVP year. Right now, he's a leading candidate. Seattle finds ways to win games. By the way, Arizona, when they play somebody good, they get their ass handed to them. Kingsbury gets out-coached. When they play somebody bad, they win. They're playing somebody good. Seahawks on the road, laying 3.5 total. The 3.5 there is even, not minus 110, I might add. And I think the total is sitting right around 56. Quickly, does Arizona stand a chance in this game, Arun?
Well, the Seahawks lost to them last year, so I think I think Seattle will remember that loss. But more than the side, Kingsbury is interesting because he has a tendency to get up for some better teams at times. But I do like the over in this game, Tony, and that's because I think Seattle can't stop anybody. I mean, they gave up 26 points to Kirk Cousins. Heck, my Falcons did better than that. They gave up, 23 points to the Dolphins and 31 to Dallas and 30 to New England. By the way, New England scored 12 last week. And they gave up 25 to the Falcons. And I think that Arizona will have a few trinkets up their sleeves to, kind of surprise Seattle just as a wrinkle for this game. And, they put up 38 against Dallas and 30 against the Jets and 21 against a really good Carolina defense, 23 against a pretty good Detroit defense, and 30 against Washington. I would not be a bit surprised to see both these 30 points and see this game probably go over. Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
official. That is the Tony's Time NFL Week 7 official free play. I was hoping that you wanted to say under so I could get my steak and my beer back, but we both
yeah.
agree this week on damn near everything, which is scary, folks. He's Indian Cowboy. He's over at Doc Sports. As I'm Tony George, I'm over there. 10 other great handicappers are over there. Go get your free $60. Good luck this Sunday. Click that link in the description below. And come visit us this weekend. Win yourself some money on Football Sunday in the NFL. Thanks for tuning in.